when we're talking about search engine optimization, what we're really talking about is optimizing for Google. So as you guys know, Google handles the majority of internet searches today, and there's more competition than ever in the search results. So if you look at the early days, so the beginnings of Google, when the founders created the first version of Google search engine, they were in grad school. And because they were in grad school, they were keenly aware of the way that academic scholars are evaluated. And the way they're evaluated is based on citations to the papers that they publish. So if I'm a scholar and I publish a paper, if it's cited by other scholars when they're doing their research, then that's how we know that it was a useful paper. So what the Google founders did was they took this one key insight from the academic world and they applied it to web search. So this is a paper from my time in grad school. And at the end of the paper, we had a bunch of citations. We're basically calling out the papers that we read that helped our research. And when we include them, we're saying that these papers were useful to us. Pet store, an online pet store. And you could imagine if you had an online pet store and you're working on your SEO, what you would want is you would want links from an article in the Boston Globe, an article in CNN, or from the American Veterinary Medical Association. That's going to help your website, help you improve your rankings. So Google's original algorithm was based on this observation that the best websites are going to have the most links, just like the best academic papers are going to have the most citations pointing to them. And the reason why the best websites have the most links is because they're the most useful. So Google's original idea was that they're going to use the link structure of the web to identify the most useful pages. And that was the original algorithm. So that was a rules-based algorithm where rankings are determined by these rules that the Google founders were brilliant enough to come up with, and they worked much better than anything else at the time. And that's how they built their company. But the way it's really evolved is now Google's algorithm today, 20 years later, is based on AI algorithms. And the AI algorithms are deciding how to rank pages based on their training, which is different. So how does Google train its AI? Three areas here that I'm going to talk about. So one is the humans. So these are human quality raters. So these are people who are looking at websites and rating them. You know, are they trustworthy? Do they look like they have the expertise in their space? Does it look like the content is useful? Is there any reason not to trust them? And what's important, especially for people doing SEO, is to understand that these quality raters, they're not determining the rankings. They're really creating a data set of labeled websites, so rated websites that Google can use to train their AI. And then it's the AI that's actually ranking the websites. Now, the second thing Google's looking at for training its AI is searcher behavior. So Google is watching you when you search. Google's watching what you click on. Google's watching whether you stay on that website or you bounce back to Google and you click somewhere else. So that all of that data, that behavioral data when you're using the search engine, feeds into the AI and is a basis for training the AI. Then last thing I'll talk about here in terms of training is tuning Google's algorithm. So there is a manual approach to this, and that's basically engineers at Google who are deciding what information the search engine is going to collect. The old way of doing SEO was bottom up. We would start by thinking about what are the technical signals Google's looking at on our website, and then just optimize those. But the top-down strategy works better nowadays. The way we think about it is the purpose-driven SEO approach. And the purpose-driven SEO approach can be mission-driven, especially if you do have a social mission for your brand, but you don't need that. It can be product-driven, so because there's something distinctive about your product or your service, or it could be story-driven. So this is a manufacturing company that makes Velcro straps. What we found when we talked to them was that one of their founders was volunteering at high schools, trade schools. So we started the campaign to recruit the next generation of electricians. And that was the purpose-driven SEO strategy that we used to grow their authority and build out targeted content in their space. So there's also the product-driven approach. Yum Earth is a company that we worked with. They created and sell organic candy that uses organic ingredients. What we wanted to do to build authority for them was to help other food companies understand that they can use organic ingredients too without much extra cost. So that was the authority building strategy, and the purpose was really based around their product. iFixit is a company that I really admire. This is the type of e-commerce site that I would build when I do build an e-commerce site, which I'm planning to. So what they do is they sell parts and kits if you want to fix your electronics at home. So that's how they make their money. But the other half of their website is all advocacy. Like, it's what they care about is the right to repair, which means that electronics companies should release enough information about their products that anybody can repair their own electronics. So they do so much advocacy around that issue that they get authority and trust, and they use that to rank really well for searches related to the parts that they sell, and that's how they make their money. So that's their mission. They actually chose this cause that they care about. So why should you have a purpose behind their SEO? Because it'll help you build targeted content. It'll help you connect with your audience. It'll help you find like-minded individuals and organizations that you can build authority with. And it'll help you do outreach. So when you're doing outreach for backlinks or content partnerships, you can pitch the mission, not the product, not the content. The old way was to pitch your product or your service, and or even like awesome content that you created. The new way is to pitch the purpose behind your SEO, the mission behind your SEO, and you'll be much more likely to get a content partnership or a backlink without them asking for money. And also, you might be doing good in the world depending on the mission or the purpose that you choose. Also important, you don't need a social mission. It could be the founder's backstory or your products that are your mission, but it does have to be authentic and compelling to influencers that you're reaching out to. Also, when you're building content, this purpose-driven SEO content, I like to think of it as citable content. So if I create an interview or a data-driven content piece or a survey or something like that, there are people who will link to it because they want to do their own advocacy. Like, they're going to link to it as evidence for what the message that they're trying to get out there. So that's why I like to think about this purpose-driven SEO content as citable content. And then when you're doing your outreach, like I said before, pitch the purpose. Don't pitch your product, don't pitch your service, don't pitch your content. And this is when you're doing email outreach for content partnerships for your SEO campaign or link building, or even for customers. It works for your marketing. I start first by finding the partners that I know I'm going to want to link out to. So we did this for a funeral home company, and we were looking at who will the partners be for their SEO campaign. And it turned out it was funeral home organizations and trade groups, and also some publications that we found and some online forums that we found. Then we're looking for what should our purpose be, and it needs to align with our values. For the funeral home company we were working with, we found that it was wellness for funeral home directors was going to be the purpose that we were going to go after, that aligned with the business owner's values. And then we build the citable content. So this could be interviews with funeral home directors, or data-driven content or surveys around wellness of funeral home directors. And when we build that content, we're building it so that we can do outreach to like-minded individuals and organizations and get backlinks and engagement and content partnerships. And that's what's going to drive the authority for our SEO.